What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. So the Nintendo Direct rumors are back, yes, and they're for this week. I talked about it a bit on the second channel as it was breaking, but I wanted to cover it here also because it is spreading like crazy, and the expectations are pretty high for a general Nintendo Direct to take place this week, and I just wanted to go over it and even what I kind of think is gonna happen. Also, we have to talk about Microsoft firing back now at Apple, showing support for Unreal Engine and in turn Epic Games. Also, Fall Guys. There was a data mine, and it looks like it might also be coming to the Switch. As always, guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button helps out a ton. And if you're brand new here, hit that red subscribe button down below. We're trying to hit 500,000 subscribers here by the end of this year. So if you're new here, consider subscribing down below with that red button. We're going to start today with Gamescom. Gamescom is this week. It is starting on Thursday. And while I'll admit I don't have super high expectations for it, mostly because this entire year has felt weird when it comes to games. Obviously, we haven't had an E3, and that's the first time in, 20-something years? It's been a while. So now we get to think about Gamescom. I'll be curious to see how this is going to go down. However, Jeff Keighley is talking about the event and saying there's going to be quite a bit of stuff there. You can see this tweet here saying a few things on opening night live for Thursday. Show is live from a studio in Los Angeles. We're being very careful. No live audience. Currently 38 games in the show from 18 different publishers, expected runtime 2 hours. Now, Jeff does go on to say that it's not just all brand new game after brand new game after brand new game. They're going to have updates on games that have already been announced, and even when questioned about there being any gameplay at all, or will just be cinematic trailers and CGI all over the place, Jeff Keighley says, wanna bet. So it does sound like there will be some gameplay there to showcase games, maybe with updates. Or also, you never know. Gamescom last year didn't really hit that hard, right? The biggest thing, remember, that happened wasn't part of it. They updated us on stage and said, oh, Sony just bought Insomniac. And we're like, oh, wow, that's big news. But it wasn't part of Gamescom. We saw Death Stranding quite a bit, actually, some gameplay. So I'm hoping there's something really cool and a big surprise this year starting Thursday night, but I don't have massive expectations, so that might be the best way to go into it here so we can be surprised. Also, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered is out this week. I'm looking forward to it. I liked it on the GameCube back in the day, and I think it'll be really fun to revisit it. However, Square's doing some weird stuff with this game. We, of course, talked about how there's no, like, couch co-op on it, and strangely, it looks like they're region locking the multiplayer. The online multiplayer, you won't be able to play, I guess, with people outside of your region. You can see a headline here for it. For example, Final Fantasy VII Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition, multiplayer is region locked. This was discovered after reading through some of the fine print, which of course also includes, oh, you have to pay for your online service, whether it's through Nintendo or Sony or whatnot. Yeah, we get that, but further down says that it will be region locked to your region. Square is overthinking this release badly. I don't get any of this. This is strange stuff. I'm still going to check the game out, but the fact that there's no physical release that I've seen, it's like all digital, and I don't know. I was hoping there'd be a little bit more time and effort and work put in this. At least there's cross-play and all of that, and people on their phone, I guess, can play with you if you're on your PlayStation 4 or your Switch, for example, but not in different regions. Oh, and it does look like Ubisoft is continuing their push towards a future of all digital and streaming. We know Ubisoft's been pushing that way after telling their investors over and over and over again about how much more money they make on digital sales or even on the streaming future. You can see here, for example, on their site, they updated everyone who was getting Collector's Edition for the Xbox One, saying pre-orders for Collector's Edition of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Far Cry 6, and Watch Dogs Legion for Xbox will receive a digital key to redeem instead of a physical disc. Collector's Edition for PlayStation will receive physical game discs as well. Apparently, you can opt for a digital code if you want for your PlayStation Collector's Edition, and obviously most people probably look at this and say, well, I'm paying more money for a Collector's Edition. I feel like I should get the game disc itself and not just a code, because then you at least have some value there with that disc. You could trade it in or even sell it, right? Whereas a code, you redeem it and that's kind of it. But Ubisoft, I'm sure, has a lot of data to back this up on their end because they have released numbers before that did show a decline in their overall games being divided up between systems for the Xbox going down. It was like 15% last we saw, whereas the PlayStation was at 26% for their overall game sales. So yes, they're looking at that and saying, let's see what happens with the Xbox is all digital. Honestly, if no one really cares, they could be moving that way for all of their collector's editions. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. We're gonna start right away with these Nintendo Direct rumors that blew up online over the weekend. It got a bit out of control, a bit out there at times, but the general consensus appears to be that there is an expectation for Nintendo to have some sort of event this week, and I have seen a lot of push towards a general Direct on Friday. Yeah, the 28th. This is the part that throws me off, and we're going to get into that, but let's actually go over to the source that's really set these rumors off, because we've heard about the 28th, I would say, over the last week and a half, but it wasn't until Jeff Grubb mentioned it during a GamesBeat podcast that the internet really exploded after noticing. I've heard a few things, and I think there's a strong possibility that there is a Nintendo Direct next week on Friday the 28th. That's the date I've heard. At the end of that show, they said, we're going to have more partner showcases coming up soon. So anything I hear in the back of my mind, there's always that ringing as an echo. I think there's a lot of science pointing to next week being a general Direct, and there is a general Direct coming up, it seems like, for sure. I think that it makes a lot of sense for them to get a Direct out of the way before that happens, so they don't have to answer questions like, what games are coming up? That's in reference to their investors meeting. That's this, we talked about it before in Newswave, but in the middle of September, they're going to have this management investors meeting where they could possibly announce changes in management. We're not 100% sure on what that meeting is, but it is something to keep an eye on, especially if they want to have some games announced for it so that they at least have something to talk about with games and their management. So like I said before, a lot of people are looking towards the 28th. The 28th, however, is a Friday. That is not normal for a Nintendo Direct. Usually it's the middle of the week, so it makes sense for both the Western audience in the US and then in Japan as well. And unfortunately, I've said before, Europe just tends to fall wherever it is, right? Sometimes it's the middle of the night. I've talked to people who are trying to cover it, and it's like 11 at night or it's 1 a.m. their time. And that's just, I mean, it's hard to have an event the same everywhere, right? It really is. It's probably gonna be a bad time somewhere in the world. But the idea that this is an absolute straight up general Direct is the concern right now that I'm seeing, at least on my side. The expectation is set pretty high right now on rumors, and I thought it would be good to talk about it here. Mostly because Nintendo likes to announce these things after I have Newswave go live. So look, I'm trying to do my part here. So going into this rumored Direct, I like to give Jeff Grubb the benefit of the doubt because he has been pretty much on point every time he's mentioned something like this, right? And I know people like to say, oh, another Nintendo Direct rumor happens every week. Well, I mean, Jeff Grubb did mention the Direct before. It just wasn't a general Direct. It was a Direct Mini. And then we heard about a Direct coming up, and it was their partner showcase. Keelio's got that one right, too. And then we heard about an Indie Direct, and that did happen. So for the most part, these have been correct. They just have not been general Directs. And I have a concern that that's going to happen again this time. I think this could be another weird Direct spin-off, we'll call it that. It's very possible that it could be a first-party Direct, but not called general Direct or Nintendo Direct. It could be called like the Mario Direct, and it really does lean into the idea of Mario's anniversary that is like 2.5 weeks after that day. And that would make sense. Then Nintendo can announce we'll call it Super Mario 3D All-Stars, what we'll go with here. They could announce that collection that's been rumored for months now. Anything like 3D World Deluxe, maybe some smaller things, maybe an update to the Nintendo online service, or the whole thing could be another partner showcase where they let us know about WWE Battlegrounds once again. So be careful with those expectations. I do think something is happening this week after I checked in on things a bit more, after I put the video out over the weekend. Yes, Nintendo is making some sort of move this week, at least it seems so far. It just, no one seems to be able to say, yes, it's a general Direct. It's just, Nintendo's doing something. Next up, let's talk about Microsoft firing back at Apple and in turn supporting Unreal Engine with Epic Games. We know that Epic is going through this weird spat right now with Apple. It was out of nowhere they decided to try to bypass Apple's own transaction, the way they do transactions on the iOS store with Fortnite, so they could bypass the cut that Apple was getting, and then Fortnite got ripped down, and it sounded like Apple was considering removing Epic Games from their Apple SDK, so they wouldn't be able to use any of the developer tools, which means they wouldn't be able to continue support for Unreal Engine on iOS. That's a problem for a lot of developers, and that does include Microsoft. You can see this tweet here where Phil Spencer made everyone aware that they had filed a declaration of support in court. You can see here, says, today we filed a statement in support of Epic's request to keep access to the Apple SDK for its Unreal Engine. Ensuring that Epic has access to the latest Apple technology is the right thing for game developers and gamers. And for the smaller developers, yes, because I have a feeling a lot of those developers just like stopped for a minute and said, well, wait, if I can't use Unreal Engine and I'm halfway through my project now and it is targeting iOS and I'm counting on the amount of users there, that user base, which is massive, what do I do exactly? Yeah, that would be a problem. So Microsoft coming in to do this makes sense. It just puts more pressure on Apple really at that point as another bigger company comes in to do that. And naturally, Microsoft wants to do it because what did Apple do to xCloud? Well, they blocked it for what is a pretty bad reason still, because the more you think about other apps like Netflix and Amazon Prime and all this stuff being allowed on there, but not xCloud, technically they're the same kind of things where they're portals to content. Yes, so it really makes sense why Microsoft do this. Also, they are using Unreal Engine as well, and I mean, they could be moving stuff to iOS. I think, Forza Street or something, they have that. Yeah, okay, but you never know what else could be coming up. Microsoft seems very interested in the overall mobile landscape as well. This just makes sense for Microsoft to team up with Epic. And you know what? You could see some other companies do it too, because Unreal Engine is very popular to use, so it affects so many different developers and companies that you could see it become very one-sided against Apple on this as these declarations of support start to stack up. Next up, let's talk about the gaming phenomenon of 2020, and that has to be Fall Guys. Seriously, if this game doesn't win multiplayer game of the year, I don't know what will. This is it right here, right? But it's on the PlayStation, it's on PC, and people have been wondering, well, it's so popular there, could it be making its way to other platforms like the Switch? Seems to be a perfect fit, for me anyway, on the Switch, because it's Mario Party Online done right. I mean, that's the way I look at it, and I've seen others say the same thing, especially on the Spawncast, but check this out here. Oatmeal Dome actually spotted something, saying, interestingly, Fall Guys has the Nintendo SDK plugin .dll file in its game files on Steam. This means that the Fall Guys Unity project has support for the Nintendo Switch's SDK, not necessarily that it will come to Switch. It's also been there since the first version. So I looked at this and I said, it makes sense to come to the Switch. I think it would work there. I think it'd be very popular there, as well as on the PlayStation 4 and on PC. But there's always the possibility that they left that in there because they were thinking about a Switch port at one point, but then Sony rolled up with a big bag of cash and said, hey, we want this either exclusively or a timed exclusive for now, and it goes live on PlayStation Plus. There are microtransactions in the game, and people have pointed out that, yeah, that's probably a good way for Sony to get some extra money out of it, as they get money from each dollar spent basically on those microtransactions through their shop. However, let's say it's like a month-long exclusivity that they picked up specifically for PlayStation Plus. It could probably be going to the Switch by the end of this year. But what if Sony just went ahead and just grabbed it completely and the developers were taken care of? Obviously, they're doing pretty well here, even just outside of Sony's bag of cash. But basically what we'll see is how long that timed exclusivity is, if it exists, because then it'll pop up on the Switch. It appears that it's also going to cell phones in China, and going to cell phones makes a ton of sense for Fall Guys. I hope they get that on as many platforms as they can, because it is just super popular online and you have to strike now. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Gotham Knights and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Both were unveiled over the weekend, one more than the other, right? This was at DC Fandome, and we did see gameplay for Gotham Knights and like a cinematic trailer for Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. We got information on both, more so on Gotham Knights. However, because that is coming 2021, Suicide Squad will follow up in 2022. That is done by Rocksteady, whereas the other one, WB Montreal. But the gameplay that we got to see was a fair amount, I would say, and they worked to explain as much as they could. Now, Gotham Knights will be cross-gen, okay? So it will be on the PlayStation 4, the Xbox, it will also be on PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series X. From what I saw, I think it looks pretty good. They showed off a lot of co-op gameplay, it seemed, and basically they were kind of going through a level, getting to the top where Mr. Freeze was to kind of initiate the boss battle, and then it ended after that. But we did see things like experience bars, of course, numbers popping up as you're attacking enemies, levels for different enemies, as well as your main character. So it does look like it is going to lean heavily on RPG elements, and there will be full co-op, which is, I mean, that's a pretty cool idea to have that and it be full online. It looks like, based on the story, Bruce Wayne has, at least in the beginning it seems, died, and it looks like we will have the Bat family, quote unquote, attempt to save Gotham here. So you have Batgirl, Red Hood, which is pretty cool to see Red Hood there, Nightwing, and then Robin, all working through this. So, I mean, I like the list of characters. I think it's cool to move away from Batman a bit because we've had so many Batman games, but believe it or not, it's not Gotham Knights that continues the Arkham series. It's actually Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Yeah, and while we didn't see like gameplay for it, it is going to be a next-gen game only, so it's going to be PS5, Xbox Series X, and PC. It appears that it's going to be basically 4 players playing together. Otherwise, you'll just have bots for the other 3, and you can control any one of the characters of the Suicide Squad as you play through. We need more information on that one, but Gotham Knights, I think, looks pretty good. Again, I need to see a bit more from it, but so far, I like the premise of it. I like the Court of Owls being the main antagonist, right? So here's hoping they have some cool twists and turns in the story, and the overall level progression is solid, we'll say. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from TJ Maxx saying, if I could get the PS5 and go home with Demon's Souls and Gran Turismo same day, I'd be into that. And you know what? If Gran Turismo 7 could launch this holiday, it would be good for Sony and Polyphony because there's no brand new Forza game launching this year. Even I kind of thought there would be, but I don't know, maybe they just ran into remote work issues, or who knows, it just had to be pushed to next year, it seems. So Gran Turismo this year would make sense. They'd be the only real next-gen first-party racing game ready to go, but I think it could fall to next year. One, Polyphony does take a while to get these things out, but 2, I think this would be a good way to showcase the PlayStation VR 2. I mean, Gran Turismo Sport was even coming with the headset for a while, so naturally, there are a lot of people out there who played Gran Turismo Sport with VR mode, and it was actually pretty cool. Like it wasn't this massive, fully featured racing game with VR, but it had a good effect. It was pretty immersive, and they updated it further so it could do a bit more than just, I think, have one car that you'd race with some of the dumbest AI I've ever seen. But that would be a great way to go about it, and who knows, maybe they even launch those near each other, but that's kind of why I think it's falling to next year, because it will have somewhat of a VR focus at launch. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit the like button, really helps out. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about today, whether it is these Nintendo Direct rumors for Friday. Friday's a weird day. Maybe it's Friday in Japan and Thursday in the West. Maybe it's not a general direct at all. Maybe it's like a Mario Direct. Maybe it's another partner showcase. Let me know what your thoughts about all of that are down below. Maybe there's no direct. That's always possible too. What about Fall Guys possibly going to the Switch? Would you like to see it there? And what about Microsoft backing Epic and Unreal Engine as Apple attempts to kind of pull support for it? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.